Hello, my name is Clara. I am the co-founder of List Perfectly, and today I am honored to be joined on this session with Cayley Elaine. If you don't already know her, Cayley is a six-figure reseller, YouTuber, mentor, and co-founder of Resellers Edge University. So let's welcome Cayley. Hi, Cayley.
Hi.
Thank you for
Yeah,
coming.
thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Did I forget anything on your amazing introduction?
No, I'm just a normal reseller. Just doing lots of ventures, but no, that sounds right.
Beautiful audience. She's very humble, and that's something that makes me very excited to share Kaylee's journey with you today, because not only she's very humble, but she has an incredible spirit to share her knowledge with our community. So, Kaylee, thank you again for coming. But would you please start by sharing a little about how you first got into reseller and what drew you into this industry, please?
Yeah, I have a story that I've never really shared the full thing, but it's a lot of stuff, so I'm gonna summarize it. But I was working a full-time corporate job. It was somewhere that I started and worked at for about 8 years before, reselling, and I worked my way up the corporate ladder. And I was a
Um,
very, very busy person, starting to make a lot of money,
yeah.
starting to have a career that I thought that I wanted at the time. And I started a side hustle for reselling because I had a broken laptop and I was like, I need to just see how to find parts for this laptop. So I went onto eBay trying to find parts for this laptop and I
Mm,
couldn't figure it out. So I went onto YouTube to search how to do some things on eBay.
yeah.
And along that search, somehow I came across some reseller YouTubers. And it just opened up a whole world for me, and I was like, "People can do that?" Like, people intentionally get things and flip them, and I was like, "I wanna do this."
Right.
So that laptop really started my journey, and then from there, I was like, "I'll just start by flipping some things around my house." I actually started with clothing, which is interesting because that's mostly what I do now.
Yeah.
And I started flipping some things from around my house, realized I could do it as a side hustle, um, and then
Yeah.
that side hustle became full time. So that's how I started.
What a journey, because that actually is how we always advise resellers to get started
Right.
reselling. Start reselling by getting items from you that you can flip from your house. So that's yes, that's exactly what we always say is a safe way to get into this beautiful industry. But when you first started, what platform did you primarily sell on?
I primarily sold on eBay. If Poshmark was even an option at the time, I had never heard of it, so I wasn't aware of it. It may not back then. It was about
Yeah.
2016 I started
Oh,
doing this as a part-time thing.
right.
Um, so I don't know if Poshmark was even around, but
Yes.
definitely eBay. I had not heard of any other reselling platform. I wasn't aware that any of them existed.
Oh my, that's just incredible. And at that time, did you think you would grow into a full-time reseller selling in multiple marketplaces?
Not a chance. Back then when I started reselling,
Right,
I like I said, I'd been at that same company for a long time, and I just, like, I
right.
thought that was it. That and I think a lot of people feel that way when you're at a company, like,
Mhm. Me
that's
too.
what you do, you move up the ladder, and my plan had basically been laid out for me from the company. I was being fast tracked up the corporate ladder, and so
Right.
I thought that that was it for me, but obviously that's not what happened.
That's just incredible. So, and as your business grew, when did you know there was maybe time to expand out of eBay?
Yeah, honestly, the only thing that changed was I learned about List Perfectly, and I'm just being honest with about that.
Guilty.
Yeah, I didn't know. I think in the beginning I was a little late to the game on some things because the thing about reselling is, and this is true for a lot of people, is you don't know what you don't know. And so if I would have never have come across, the content about resellers in the beginning, I wouldn't be reselling today. If I wouldn't have heard about List Perfectly, I wouldn't have known that you could cross post to other platforms. It just wasn't something I'd even considered, like never thought about. And
Right.
so hearing that it was even a possibility when I came across List Perfectly as a tool was what really expanded those opportunities. And it was like, that
Yeah.
meme where there's like a bunch of like calculations floating around. That's what it was. I was like, oh my gosh, imagine the possibilities. I can't believe this exists.
You went Russell Crowe, like a beautiful mind or something like that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. So you were in eBay. So what was your first platform to branch out of eBay, especially for us native eBay sellers? Other platforms are challenging.
Yes. It's kind of funny. I cross posting over to Poshmark.
Yeah.
But at the time I did it, I didn't understand Poshmark as a platform. I didn't understand any platform except for eBay. And so
Yeah.
I failed the first time that I did it. And I was like, Poshmark's not for me. So then I went and basically did what everybody does when you find out, you can cross post other platforms, which is I listed every single platform.
Yeah.
And now, fast forward, Poshmark's actually a loved platform of mine. It's my second highest grossing platform, but I started on Poshmark and I failed the first time.
So there you have it. If you started on Poshmark and didn't understand it's social commerce versus
Yes.
eBay, that is a whole e-commerce platform. So I think that that's a challenge for us eBay sellers that were native eBayers. We go to Poshmark and we see the social commerce aspect that is so intimidating. Have you ever thought, for example, getting your website with, something? When was your first time, or did you think about it?
Like creating my own website for the clothing.
Yes, for reselling. Yes.
Yeah, I've thought about it. I've actually had a lot of people suggest it, but I'm a very analytical person, so I like to kind of fully think out like how's this gonna work? Is it worth my time? Whatever. And I
Yeah.
thought about doing a Shopify store, and it was only for the reason that other people were trying it back back then. But after I thought about it, I don't even remember who said it, but I heard someone say, like, look, when you have a Shopify store, it's your responsibility to bring the traffic to it versus selling on a reselling platform like eBay and Poshmark. They're doing that work for you. And that's part of what your fees are built into. Like you're getting all their tools, you're getting their customers that are already on the platform and they're marketing for you. And so after I heard that, I was like, it does not make sense for me to have my own website.
I love that you really did your research and you understood that aspect. Sometimes I think that our community jumps too fast to open a
Yes.
Shopify store without understanding the implications of the additional job and how good we have it with
Right.
marketplaces doing that promotions, whether it's organic, whether it's prepaid, whether it's social commerce for us. Yeah, no, that makes absolutely makes a lot of sense. What would you say were one of the biggest lessons you learned as you switch from being a single platform seller on eBay to selling on multi platforms?
I think the biggest lesson I learned was that it is worth it. Number one. So I mentioned that analytical mind. I was like, what could I possibly get from being on other platforms versus what is it going to cost me? And I don't
Yeah,
even mean cost in a monetary way. I was looking at my time. I'm gonna have to delist. I'm gonna have to, on Poshmark, once I figure that whole thing out, I'm like, okay, now I gotta spend time to share. I gotta spend time to do X, Y, and Z. And so I really evaluated the what I could potentially get out of it and the cost.
right.
And that's the method I use with every additional platform that I add on. And I think that was the biggest lesson for me and something I teach other people is if you are going to add an additional platform, weigh the costs of it. But usually it's going to outperform your costs. You're going to get so many more eyes on your product that you otherwise wouldn't have gotten. And so that was a big lesson for me.
That's just spot on, because I think that's very valuable, Kaylee. Now, you're also known for really teaching smarter reselling and, how to have a sustainable reselling business. And I want to share right now to those of you beautiful audience, here is Kaylee's Reseller Edge University. I couldn't be more happy of what you're doing, Kaylee, helping our community to sell smarter. How did this came about, this idea, Kaylee?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I got on social media in general, my goal was to share with, fellow resellers the things I never got from YouTube. I learned everything from YouTube in the beginning, but there were nuggets and bits and pieces that just weren't really being shared. And I wanted to start social media to share that.
Right.
Eventually, obviously, my social media grew. I developed a following and really a community, and my community started asking me for more. And there's only so much you can do on YouTube. Like, I can't work
Mhm.
one on one with someone on YouTube. I can't have them share their screen with me on YouTube, if that makes sense. I'm
Yep.
limited to just commenting. And
Yep.
so they were asking for more from me, and I started to put together um
Mhm.
what I thought that might look like. And right when I was about to Sean and Bethany, who are my co-founders from Trash Pandas Thrift, reached out
Right.
to me and they were like, "Hey, we got this idea. We're thinking about starting a community for reselling." I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm doing the same thing." And then we said, "Let's be better together," and kind of bridge the gap between what they know and what I know. And it was like fate. It was a perfect combination.
Oh, that's just incredible, and that's the beautiful thing about our community. And I couldn't find that in when I work in banking or in law. Our community has that incredible camaraderie that we can find and each other, and then team up with the people that we love, getting projects. And that this is an incredible project. I highly recommend our audience to go and check on Reseller Hedge University. Do you remember? Let's just do a little, and I wanna do, just before we go into a very, very hot topic. Yes, we're gonna be talking about Poshmark excessive relisting new policy. But before we go there, do you remember an example of list perfectly help you save time and improve your sell-through rate? What was the
Oh my gosh. So many examples.
well,
um,
that's a good answer. Thank you.
Yeah, so many examples I could say. I think in the beginning, just the cross posting alone, because I did attempt to do it myself in the beginning. I like to try things out, copy and pasting. I timed it and I was like, this is not working. So I heard about List Perfectly and I was like, oh my gosh, I could cross post and get everything over in set. It takes me about 20 seconds per item
Yeah.
versus spending, minutes doing it. So that's just one. As you guys have evolved and you've added all these new tools and things like that, one of the biggest time savers for me is now
Uh-huh.
delisting. So we talked about, the cost of adding a new platform. A cost is the fact that you also have to do additional tasks to make sure stuff doesn't double
Right.
sell. And so as List Perfectly has evolved and my business has evolved to incorporate cross posting, delisting is a huge time saver for me. And I love the auto delist.
Yes, auto delist in sales detection. That's something that we're really proud of. But that makes me very happy, because as a multi-platform reseller, is crucial to stay compliant with different platforms and have those listings being automatically delisted. So thank you so much for that, Kaylee.
Yeah.
So now let's go to the controversial topic. What's up, Poshmark? What happened? I heard comments from, why are you doing this to me, Poshmark? From, what is this form? But what is your feedback right now? And this is just fresh, guys. This is literally like 3-4 days ago that Poshmark just released the excessive listing removal policy, trying to attempt what their explanation is about helping resellers to optimize listings and not just copy and paste and release delist automatically. What's your feedback on that?
I think I have a different take than most resellers. Whenever hot topics happen, I don't like to get involved right away because I like to sit back. I like to kind of watch how things are going to play out. Poshmark and other platforms have done a lot of changes recently that are like stirring things up, and I always say like just give it a couple weeks and see what they come up with. But when it comes to this topic, I personally wasn't really phased by it because
Mhm.
although I relist, and I think that ending and refreshing your listings is super important, and I do it on a regular basis, I
Nice.
don't find myself in the category that does it excessively. I'm not somebody who does it on the daily, and I actually personally recommend not to do that just from what I know about how the algorithm works. You're kind of
Right.
ripping it out of like the work that it's done to get it in the catalog, in my opinion.
Right.
So I personally was not bothered by that, but I do know a lot of sellers that I work with and friends that do delist, relist, or in, similar, whatever, on a
Yeah.
pretty regular basis. And it is concerning for those resellers that are doing that because you definitely don't want a stream of income that you have to be completely shut down. And I also get Poshmark side. A lot of times we don't factor in like why a platform would be doing this, but a lot of the times they're doing it to protect sellers, to protect buyers, to protect their platform. And it makes sense to me. We shouldn't be refreshing those listings every single day because it does give an unfair advantage, and it's also not doing yourself any service by constantly flipping those over, in my own opinion.
Exactly, exactly. So for resellers that want to stay compliant and stay visible with these new Poshmark policies, how important do you think that true listing optimization versus just one-click auto deal is really and putting the same content, hoping, that initial push, okay, will help. How do you feel about the true listing optimization that literally Poshmark and List Perfectly are encouraging resellers?
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is for everything that it has to make a difference if you're going to do it. And if you have a listing that's been sitting and it hasn't sold, then something needs to change in that listing, probably, besides just ending and copying the exact same listing and the fact that you're bringing it to the top of the page. So
Right.
in terms of exactly what you're saying, which is true optimization, you want to optimize any way you possibly can. And so you want to first, you want to make sure it looks like a fresh new listing to the platform. You want to edit anything because there's a reason it's not sitting, or sorry, it's not selling and it's been sitting, which means you want to freshen something up, change something about the listing to give
Right.
it the best chance of selling. And I'm all about optimizing. If you're going to do something, optimize it.
Great. So would you be in agreement thinking that maybe resellers that are focusing on real listing quality will have an advantage over with this new policy from Poshmark?
I think that the only advantage would happen if you were truly working with the platform and complying with them and editing your listing, and making sure it looks like a fresh new listing to Poshmark and not a bot.
Exactly, exactly, which is perfectly is not a bot. Okay, this is amazing. Thank you for your feedback, Kaylee. And then, where are you seeing the most growth today? Has eBay truly become your strongest marketplace? Does it remain your strongest marketplace?
Yeah, eBay's my first love, and I like to say it probably always will be, but we know we know things can change. But I mean, I'm again very analytical. So just from a numbers perspective, eBay has significantly more buyers for the market that I sell in, which is pre-owned
Nice.
clothing. Significantly more buyers, which means significantly more opportunities if you optimize and do things correctly,
Yeah.
for sales. And so because of that, I think eBay just naturally becomes, the top dog in sales. And so it remains my best platform. And what I love about eBay is I'm very lucky and grateful, in my opinion, that I started there because a lot of people consider it the hardest, toughest platform.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
feel like because I started there and I figured the hell out, every platform seems so easy after that
Yes, that is
uh,
very true.
uh,
For Poshmark native sellers to go to eBay is like a scary thing, and for us,
yeah,
it's vice versa because there is no social aspect. That is very true, Kaylee. Once if you master eBay, you can master any
absolutely.
marketplace. Fact, yeah, that's true, and even Shopify because eBay gives you that mentality of entrepreneur, and yeah, that's very well said. Now one of the things that I love is your honest feedback and advice to our community. Are there specific types of inventory of sourcing strategies that you're focusing more on lately versus what you used to do before?
Yeah, I've come a long way in my journey, and so there's definitely things specifically that I'm doing differently, but also just as a community, because I do help coach other people. One of
Right.
the things that I've just learned and that I'm doing differently is that I understand now, and I didn't before, but I understand now that there are so many different ways to resell. And not a lot of people believe that, and
Yeah.
I'm learning that very quickly, but there are so many different ways that you can resell. There are different business models. You don't have to be doing what somebody else is doing. You wanna optimize whatever business model you're doing. There are
Yeah.
ways to do that, but at the end of the day, there are multiple ways we can be successful. For my business, I am
Right.
focused on, a high sell-through rate model. In the beginning, I would just pick up things like, "Oh, this is cute, I could probably sell it. I could just slap keywords onto it, it'll probably sell." That
Yeah.
did not work for me, so I am focused on high sell-through rate. I have employees, I have to have things churning quickly to make money and pay for the expenses I have, so for me, a high sell-through rate business model is really important, but it may not be important for someone in a different situation.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and a fast sell-through rate can be hard goods, can be clothing, can be many different categories. That is very well said. What would you say for someone that is still on eBay, thinking about branching out of eBay? What would you say the biggest advice for those that are thinking growing beyond eBay?
I would say, same concept as I mentioned before, weigh what you're gonna get out of it versus think when people are thinking about branching out, the first advice I always give everyone is it's not just one thing you're doing, it's like you're committing to a whole package of
Right.
tasks. So, understanding what that looks like, you never want to go onto another platform if you can't give it the full time that it deserves, in my opinion. And so that's why I wasn't successful on Poshmark when I first started
Yeah.
because I couldn't invest and give it the full effort as much as I was giving eBay. Once I realized that I did need to put in the full effort, do the things like the sharing, responding to questions, sending out offers, once I figured that out and I committed to that, I've been successful on any platform that I give a full effort on. And so my advice is make sure you can give it a full effort and understand the platforms and what you need to do to be successful.
Nice. That's very well. Thank you so much. Now, Kaylee, I'm going to do a fun and rapid fire round with you.
Okay.
Okay. You ready?
I'm ready.
Favorite category to resell right now?
Dresses.
Ooh, most unexpected flip this year.
Yes. Most unexpected flip? Oh, I don't normally do hard goods, but I guess it's not this year, but it was close to this year. But
Yeah,
within
yeah,
the
yeah.
last year, I sold this 80s musical instrument. It was called like a Suzuki Omnichord for $500.
Oh my.
And and I never normally do hard goods, so for me that was a very unexpected flip.
That is an unexpected answer. There you have it. Okay. Stay open minded, resellers. Okay. Now, Kaylee, while listing, coffee or tea?
Coffee. I have a cup right over there I just finished. Coffee all the way.
What if I mean, slow sales and I got returns? What would you be your advice for my mindset?
I'm actually dealing with this a lot in the reseller community. I think we're in a time right now where just time of the year where people are holding on to, money really tightly. And so
Mhm.
the advice I've taken for myself and recently is to really focus on what buyers are looking for. Sometimes we have to pivot slightly for a brief period of time. And so I had experienced slow sales at the beginning of this year myself, and
Mhm.
I would recommend, I guess, taking a look at patterns in your sales, your own store sales, because that's what you're good at. And I noticed I was like, hey, I'm selling a lot more bread and butter, $25 to $35 items.
Right.
So that must be what buyers are like looking for right now while they're tight on money. And so
Mm.
I heavily leaned into that with my sourcing, and my sales are back up and I'm starting to sell that. And I'm probably only going to need to do that for a brief time until things pick up.
Right.
But evaluate patterns in your sales and heavily lean into what you're good at to increase sales. And then
Mhm.
as far as returns go, returns are returns. Like, you can look at what are some things you might be doing wrong. If you are doing something wrong, fix that, obviously.
Right.
But sometimes things just come in waves. You got to take it on the chin and you got to move forward.
That's right. No, that's right. Very well said, Kaylee. I want to remind our audience that even though we're coming to the end of this incredible session with Kaylee, you can stay in touch with Kaylee in her YouTube channel. Yes, Cayley Elaine. Here you have it. Okay, this is her YouTube channel. And also, Kaylee is also present on Instagram, which she's incredible to stay active with the community. So I strongly recommend you to subscribe and follow Cayley on Instagram and YouTube, and also explore her incredible project with Reseller University Edge. That's something that we're proudly sponsoring, and as much as, and in giving support, okay, because we really believe that when you help others, you're helping yourself. And Kaylee is a clear example that that works very well. What would you say your final piece of advice for our amazing reseller community?
Um, I would just say something that comes to mind is just stay positive and stay goal oriented. There's
Mm.
a lot going on in the reseller community. There can be lots of drama. There can be upsetting things, such as, a lot of people were devastated by that Poshmark news about sharing. Things are going to happen, and just being in the mindset to always stay goal oriented. What can I do versus what can't I do now?
Okay.
And I think that for me, that mentality has brought me a lot further than focusing on all of the bad stuff.
That's very smart, Kaylee, because yes, we can look to the past and see, hey, this is what we cannot do any longer. But instead of looking at the past with, sadness, we can look at the future, and let's focus on what we can do in order to keep our reselling business going in the direction we want. Well, Kaylee, we're at the end of this incredible session, and I want to say thank you, and our audience, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time with another reseller story, and thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye.